After many years of war and instability, King David finally became king over all Israel. One of his deepest desires was to bring the Ark of the Covenant back to the center of the nation's life. The Ark was no ordinary object. It represented the presence of God. Inside it were the stone tablets of the law, Aaron's rod, a jar of manna. God had given very clear instructions in the law of Moses. The Ark must be carried only by Levites. It must be lifted using wooden poles. No one was allowed to touch it. Touching the Ark meant death, not because God was cruel, but because his holiness could not be handled casually. A celebratory but careless plan. David gathered 30,000 chosen men and went to retrieve the Ark from the house of Abinadab, where it had stayed for many years. Instead of following God's instructions, they made a new cart and placed the Ark on it. This method felt modern, efficient, and respectful, but it was copied from the Philistines, not commanded by God. 2 sons of Abinadab, Uzzah and Ahio, guided the cart. Ahio walked in front, Uzzah walked beside it. The atmosphere was joyful. David and all Israel were celebrating with harps, tambourines, cymbals, dancing. Everything looked right on the outside. The moment everything changed, as they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, the oxen suddenly stumbled. The Ark began to shake. Instinctively, Uzzah reached out his hand and touched the Ark to steady it. It felt like the right thing to do, but it was the wrong thing. Immediately, the anger of the Lord burned against Uzzah, and God struck him dead right there beside the Ark. The music stopped, the celebration froze, silence fell over the crowd. Uzzah died instantly. David's shock and fear. David was deeply disturbed. At first, he was angry. Then he became afraid. He said, "How can the Ark of the Lord ever come to me?" That day, David refused to bring the Ark into Jerusalem. Instead, he left it in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And something surprising happened. Instead of judgment, God blessed Obed-Edom and his household. This showed that the problem was never the Ark. The problem was how it was handled. Why did Uzzah die? This question troubles many people. Uzzah's intention seemed good, but God was not judging intention alone. Here is the key truth. 1. God had already given clear instructions. Uzzah grew up near the Ark and should have known the law. 2. The Ark was never supposed to be on a cart. It should have been carried by Levites using poles. 3. Touching the Ark showed familiarity without reverence. Uzzah treated God's holiness casually. 4. God's holiness is not reduced by good intentions. Sincerity does not replace obedience. The ground was not sinful. The oxen were not holy, but God's presence was sacred. A lesson David learned. Later, David corrected his mistake. He studied the law. He gathered the Levites. He carried the Ark the right way. This time, there was no death, only blessing and joy. David learned a hard but necessary lesson. God's work must be done God's way. The meaning of the story. This story teaches us that God is loving but also holy. Worship requires obedience, not shortcuts. Familiarity with sacred things can breed carelessness. Good intentions do not cancel God's commands. Uzzah did not die because God was cruel. He died because God was holy. Final reflection. Uzzah touched what was holy. David learned what was holy. Israel remembered what was holy. And the message still stands today. God's presence is not to be handled casually.